Bamidbar, chapter Hay, Pasuk, chapter Vav, the first Pasuk of chapter Vav. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's chapter Vav, Pasuk Kof Beis. So chapter 6, Bamidbar, chapter 6, Pasuk Kof Beis, 22, Pasuk 22. So this is a Shiur Klalli taking place on Thursday night, or Yud Alef. Alright? Or Yud Alef Sivan, Tav Shin Ayin Beis, in Parasha Naso. And we're going to address ourselves to the Pasuk 22, chapter 6. Now, this Pasuk begins the mitzvah to the Kohanim to bless the Jewish people, what's called Birchas HaKohanim or Birchas Kohanim. And it says, V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe leimer, Hashem spoke to Moshe that he should give over Daber el Aaron ve'el Bonov leimer, that he should give over to them, to the priestly family. Koi suvarachu es panei Yisrael omer lehem. This is what you should bless the whole Jewish people. Omer lehem, saying to them in the following way: Yivarech Hashem v'yishmerecha, yoer Hashem ponav elecha v'yichunecha, yisro Hashem ponav elecha v'yosem lecha sholem. And it finishes by saying, V'somu eshmi al b'nai Yisrael, v'ani avorachem. That Hashem says that if you bless the Jewish people in this way, then that will cause me to place my name on the Jewish people, and that will be a blessing for them. Meaning that Hashem says that he will, as Rashi points out, that Hashem will agree with the blessing of the Kohanim. He will, as it were, agree to it and strengthen the blessing that they've given to the Jewish people. Or another possibility, that Hashem says he will bless the Kohanim themselves. They will also get a bracha as a result of having blessed the Yidden. And that's the completion of the whole thing, Vani Avorachem. So this is the famous portion we say every day in davening after Birchas HaTorah, which is called Birchas Kohanim. And in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, it was a mitzvah on the part of the Kohanim that were in the Beis HaMikdash at that time to stand at a special place, on a special platform, in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash and bless all the Jewish people. And they used to use the Shema Mafere. They used to say the Shema Vaya ki mamish ki ksova. They used to read the Shema Vaya, and they used to say it with the Shin Ayin Beis or the Shem Mem Beis. In other words, they said it with all the 42 letters according to a long name. The Shem Ayin Beis, that's how they pronounce the Shema Vaya. It was a very difficult thing to do, but that's what the Kohanim used to do. And that's the mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim. We'll soon deal with it in a little more detail, but by way of background, we notice that this blessing follows the mitzvah in the Torah of a Nazir. Now, a Nazir is a person who's taken on himself a special neder, a special vow to Hashem, whereby he will not be nana from wine or anything to do with wine, even to the grapes or even the pips of the grapes, or anything to do with the grapes or the product of wine. He won't have anything to do, and he will never become tomei lameis, and he will not cut his hair. He'll allow his hair to grow, and at such time as his Nazirus is completed. Now he's called a Nazir, and that's a very special form of Neder, a very special form of vow, all in its own right, and it includes many halachas affecting a Nazir in all different aspects of his life, but centers around those two main things: that he should not drink wine or have any connection with anything that makes the wine, and he should never be tomel mace, and he should never cut his hair. Now, the mitzvah of Nazir, well, that followed the mitzvah in the Torah of Seitor. But that was the woman who was suspected of having acted immorally after she's already been betrothed or married, and she was unfaithful to her husband with another man, and he already sensed that something was going on. He'd already been makane, he'd as it were, warned his wife not to be seen together with this man, etc., etc. And then there's a whole series of halachas and what we might call activities were taken in reference to this Saita, this woman, in the Beis HaMikdash, to eventually give her to cause a certain type of water, which is called the Mayim HaMayorim, like the cursing or the bitter waters, and through that she would be tested as to whether she was actually lying or not lying, if she insisted that she had not had relations with this man. If she admitted, then nothing would be done to her, but she would have to divorce her husband. If she didn't admit, then she would have to be put through the process of the water. And so when all of that is completed in the Torah, immediately after that, when we're told all the dinim, the Seita, then we're told immediately the halacha of the Nazir. Now Rashi comes along and says a very interesting thing, although it's important for our purposes, that when the whole din of the Seita in the Torah has been completed, then at the beginning of chapter Vav, the pasuk completes with chapter Hey the whole din of the Seita, and then it begins at the beginning of chapter Vav, pasuk Aleph, and it says, "V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe leimer, daber al bnei Yisrael ve'almat aleim ish o isha ki yafli linder neder nozir lahazir l'Hashem." That he wants to become a nozir, and to become a nozir too, literally for the sake of the Eibishter. So comes along Rashi over there. Rashi says that what's this word ki yafli? That he will do wondrously. Literally, he will act in a way of wondrousness on himself to take this vow to become a nazir. So Rashi says that the word yafli is based on a basic root word in Lashon Kodesh. The word pele means something which is separate from other things. So if we say that a man will do wondrously, ki yafli, he will act in a wondrous way, that means he will separate himself off. Yafrish. Yafrish means he will separate himself from other people. He will become different. And then Rashi says, Loma nishmacho Parasha Nazir la Parasha Seita. Why is it that immediately after Seita, all the din of the Seita, we had the din of a Nazir? Why are they put together one alongside the other in the Torah? Says Rashi, Lema lecho. That comes to teach you, or to say to you, Shekora Ruya Seita Bilkul Kula, whoever will see in the Beis HaMikdash a Seita in her ruination or her not good deed, what she's done, Yozir Atzmi Min HaYayin, he will immediately, it's good for him, and it's like an advice that the Torah gives him that he should become a Nazir from wine. Why? Shehu HaMevi Lidei Niyuf, because wine is what brings to immoral activity of that sort. People get sicker and they lose control of themselves, and therefore their tivers get the better of them, and wine is behind the whole Indian of the adulterous activity, and therefore somebody who saw the Seita in the Beis HaMikdash being put through the whole process that she was to be put through, he should become a Nazir. he should immediately become a Nazir. Now the truth is that that's unusual for Rashi to ask that question, why is one Parsha alongside the other? We find hundreds and hundreds of Parshas in the Torah, and Rashi doesn't ask that question. He doesn't deal, if it's a policy on the part of Rashi to say why are Parshas put together, then he should say it every time. He should say, why is this Parsha alongside that one? And we very rarely find it. We do find it in a few places where Rashi does that. In Parsha Shlach, in another couple of weeks, he does it at the beginning of the Parsha. And here and there, Rashi does it. Why would all of a sudden Rashi here, at this point where we finish saying the dinim of the Satan, and all of a sudden we have a halacha of a Nazir, a person who's sanctified himself to separate from drinking wine and from growing his hair, from cutting his hair, and from all those inyanim. So we could suggest that what's bothering Rashi here is a simple question. The din of a Nazir is a very, how would one call, slightly disarmingly frightening din, and it's got to do with a woman who's reached a very low state in her moral standards, to the point that she went and acted immorally with another man underneath her husband. Or at least there's a suspicion. That's what we're talking about. And the whole reason why we give her to drink this water and so on, because we're not sure. We want to find out if that's the case. Then immediately the next Parsha deals with a person that he's becoming a Nazir. And Rashi says that's called like a separating himself off from all people. In what way? He's separating himself in the opposite of a Saita. She gave in to all the taivas of the world, and he's going away and separating himself off from drinking wine, which is like a symbol of all the good time of drinking and eating in this world, and he's separating himself off. He's going to grow his hair, and he's going to be holy to Hashem until such time as his native will complete itself, if he fixes the time for it, which most people did. And so he's exactly the opposite of a Saita. So why would these two parshas be together? If you're talking about somebody who's gone down very far morally, then you should put in another parsha which talks also about something to do with somebody who's dealt wrongly in a very bad way, and then tell what the halach is. And all of a sudden, from one extreme, we go to the opposite extreme. We go to the din of a Nazir. And over Rashi says, why would these two parshas be put together? They don't seem to have anything to do. In other words, where there's openly a question in the mind of the reader, why these two parshas are put together, then Rashi goes out of his way to suggest a reason why the parshas were put together. But normally he doesn't have that problem. But here in this case, he does. So therefore Rashi says that comes to tell exactly that if you see a woman who fell so far to be in an adulterous state like a Saita, then you should do exactly the opposite. You should take the reason for that type of thing, which is wine. Wine is like the indicative. And you should separate yourself altogether. You should allow your hair to grow. It's all got to do with Kedusha, according to the great Meforshim. And not to be Tomer to mess is also like the Kedusha of a priesthood. It's like a very special type of guarding of the self, being careful about what happens to one in life very, very much. And therefore, he's like going in the opposite extreme. I know there's a completely different. And therefore, as he said, it comes to tell you that if you see such a thing, then you should do the opposite in order to guard yourself and never come to fall into such a matter. Well, from that it would appear that the Nazir is a person that has in himself a yearning, he takes a deliberate act to elevate himself into a state of higher elevation and what we might call Kedusha, or we might call sanctity. And therefore we find that this is brought out very intensely by some of the great early Rishonim. When they talk about the din of the Nazir, they explain to us a little bit about that. And therefore comes along the Ibn Ezra, and the Ibn Ezra, the Rabbi Abraham Ibn Ezra, he says that why is it that this person's called a Nazir? So he said that the word Nazir is from the word Nazar. And the word Nazar in Lashon Kodesh means a crown, or a special ornament of the head like a crown. That's what I mean, which separates somebody off into a state of kingship. If you wear a Nazar on your head, you're like a royal figure. You're like somebody out of the ordinary, the royal family, or, you know, very, very important leaders of the whole public. They had these sort of, crowns on their heads. A king, in those days, he used to wear a crown miyuchad, which was a symbol of his kingship. So it says why is he called a Nazir? Because a Nazir, because he's put a crown on his head, and he's made himself into a king. And he says, why? He said, because normally people in this world become avodim of their own taivas. People become servants to their own desires. And he said, if you just live a day where you just fulfill your taivas, then you're a servant to your own lusts and desires of your body. You serve and give into what they say. So you're a servant to the taiva. This person, however, what's he done? He's done exactly the opposite. He separated himself from everything which is symbolical of taiva, which is wine, yayin. And what's he done? He's made himself a king over all the taivas, over all the physical states of the world. And therefore he's like he's called a possessor of a crown, Nazir, somebody who's crowned, because he has done the opposite of what people normally do. In other words, he's gone into a state of kedusha, and he's in charge of his taivas, not he is a servant to his taiva. He's a ruler and a king over his own soul. That's the Ibn Ezra. And this principle is backed up by a number of the great early commentators. And the Saporno, the Rabbeinu Ovadia Saporno, he says it also in a very profound and pointed way, that he said the whole inyan of a Nazir, that the Torah later calls him the word Kodesh, that he's a holy person because he separated himself from taivas of this world and from tumah, from everything to do with might pull down the level of kedusha that he wants to hold by. And he said, therefore, he's like an unusual person. He's a Nazir, a crowned person, something like what the Ibn Ezra says. But he said, why, in that case, why doesn't he separate himself from all the taivas? He should just eat bread and drink water or something. Why? It seems that he's only limiting himself from wine. So he says that the whole purpose of a Nazir is to devote his time to holy things, to learning Torah and devoting his time to higher inyanim. So he said a person like that is not allowed to fast or to deny himself too much, because if you fast and deny yourself too much, then you're not able to study Torah with the full, you can't study Torah with the full freshness of mind and body which is needed for that. And therefore the Torah only demands of him that he take a symbolical thing, wine, which all the great important, the Gemara says in Masechta Sanhedrin, the wine is like a source of many, many problems of taivas and immorality and wrong action, shikrut, drunkenness, and that comes from wine, is a very, very undesirable thing. Wine is like a symbol of all, improper usage of the physical desires. So therefore he has to separate them. For the sake of a much more delicate inyan of kedusha, he has to keep away from tumah, and then he has to allow his hair to grow, because that's also got to do with a certain inyan, right, in kedusha, which is not could I go into that barikas right now. But anyway, suffice that, it's also brought down our sages in the great Svarim about that. And therefore those are the three main things. The purpose of him being a Nazir is to separate himself a cloud from the usual run of the follies of man and to devote himself. And therefore, since he wants to devote himself to Torah, he only is allowed to separate himself from one or two main symbolical thing. He's not the support. But he agrees with the basic idea that he's a crowned person. He's an unusual man, a crowned and highly stated man, that he separated himself from the Taivas of the world. Why did he do that? Because he saw what you can come to through the Taivas. He saw what happened to the Saita and what that can involve. And therefore he goes in the opposite direction. And therefore Rashi felt that that was the reason why these two opposite parashas are put one alongside the other, in order to warn us what it should do in order to avoid falling into the trap of the Satan. That kind, up to here is Rashi. And then he tells us all the dinim of Nazi and what happens to him if he became Tomei, and what happens to him at the end when he wants to finish his Neder. He has to bring korbanos and he has to stay 7 days at a time. He's turned with a whole aricha, so you know, to cut off all his hair, and he has to burn the hair over the fire and everything. A whole series of inyanim what he has to do. Having completed all that, then all of a sudden we come to Birchas Kohanim. We already come to this special priestly blessing that Hashem tells Moshe, and Moshe tells the Kohanim that they should bless the people in this and this way with these three main brachas: Yivarechecha, Yoar Hashem Ponav Elochav, V'Yisor Hashem Ponav Elochav, V'Yosem L'chos Shalom. So it's interesting that Rashi doesn't ask over there the question, why was that put alongside the Nazir? Because Rashi doesn't feel that that's so tremendously morally different. On a course like going up into the state of Birchas Kohanim, Rashi didn't feel a demand to go out of his way to tell us why were those two parshas put together. But nonetheless, the intelligent reader asks himself, you know, why would the two parshas be put? Why would the Birchas Kohanim follow immediately after the Nazir? So therefore, the Ibn Ezra, going with the whole line that he goes, he says that the Nazir reaches a state of Kodesh, like the Torah calls him Kodesh. He reaches the state of a holy man, and the Kohanim are also holy people. The Kohanim are different than the whole Klalli Parasha in that they've got a special kedusha. Therefore, they can't be metamel l'maisim either, and they can't all sorts of things that they are not allowed to. We saw in Pasha Moya way back before Lag B'Ima. We saw all the dinim of the Kahuna. They're holy people. So since the Nazir is a holy man, then the blessing of the holy people is put alongside the holy person who's reached the state of Kedusha from having separated himself from the Taivas of the world. These are the Ibn Ezra. Now others want to suggest another reason why it's put together like that, based on a Gemara in Masechta. There's a Gemara in Masechta Tainas, I think it is, in Masechta Megillah, and also in Masechta Saita. But the Gemara tells us that a Kohen, when he makes the priestly blessing, he's not allowed to be drunk from wine. And Beklal, a Kohen is not allowed to drink wine, you know that, before he does the Avodah. And if he drinks a Ravias wine before he serves the Avodah, then he's what's called Posel Laveda. Because we say if you drink a Ravias wine, you're already on the way to being Shikar, and that is Posel, the Avodah of a Kohen. A Kohen's not allowed. So the Gemara over there in Masechta Saita says that blessing the people is also part of the service of a Kohen. Just like he's not allowed to drink wine for serving with the Korbanos, in the same way he's not allowed to, well now, that's not what's actually written in the Gemara, that's the Rambam. That's what the Rambam said. The Gemara learns that you have to stand up. When you bless the people, you have to stand, just like you have to stand when you do the Korbanah. The Gemara learns it, but you get to Amida. However, the Rambam has another source apparently, which I'm not going to go into that where he got it from right now. Over the Rambam, in his Nasias Chapayim, he says that just like the Nazir, the Kohen is not allowed to do avodah if he's drunk wine, in the same way he's not allowed to make a priestly blessing if he drank wine. And a lot of people go with this halacha, and therefore they want to suggest that that's why the priestly blessing is put alongside the Nazir, because just like the Nazir can't drink wine, and the Kohanim can't drink wine either, even when they make the priestly blessing. That's what they want to say. And it's actually, the truth of the matter is, even though there's a certain mocker in the Gemara, there's also a medrash, a medrash rabbah to that effect, which suggests that there's a reason why the priestly blessing was put alongside the Nazir, because there's business with wine. And the whole meaning of a Nazir is to keep away from wine, so the Kohanim should keep away from wine. Their in is not to drink wine. Even when it comes to the priestly blessing, they can't make the priestly blessing if they drink. And that's why on a normal day, we don't make a priestly blessing at Mincha, because we suspect that maybe the Kohanim have drunk wine in the meantime. They've eaten their lunch or their dinner or whatever, and since we worried that they might have drunk wine, if we don't make his birchas Kohanim. But on a fast day, I don't know about here in Chabad because they're rather sensitive about birchas Kohanim. In Bnei Brak, for example, on a fast day, they make birchas Kohanim at Mincha also. The reason is that being a fast day, the Kohanim haven't eaten or they haven't drunk, so we're not worried that maybe they might have drunk wine. But on a normal day, we don't make birchas Kohanim at Mincha because we suspect that maybe they drank wine. And that's based on that halacha that they can't drink wine if they're going to make the priestly blessing. Anyway, that's a sort of a link and a connection between the Nazir and the birchas Kohanim. However, the point of the what do you call him, the Ibn Ezra makes very good sense that since the Nazir, through having separated himself from wine and from tumas maize and all those inyanim, he's reached a high level in kedusha, then he's got a certain similarity to the Kohanim. And how do the Kohanim bless? They bless mikoyach, well, that kedusha that they have. They have a special kedusha, and their whole in is to serve and bring out Hashem's will in the Beis HaMikdash. One of those services is to bless the Jewish people. So, comes along the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs and the Sefer HaChinuch. He was the great Rishon that he wrote the Sefer, the Rebbe Aaron Alevi, Aaron Alevi, he wrote the Sefer HaChinuch, and he gives reasons, according to our understanding, for every mitzvah, as well known. And he and the Rambam, which is quite common, he and the Rambam say a very similar thing. And the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he said if the Eibusha wants to bench the Jewish people, then why doesn't he do it himself? Why does he have to give it to the Kohanim? And the Kohanim, they're the ones who, in other words, if he wants to give a blessing, then the Eibusha can bless us directly. Why does he do it to the Kohanim? So the Rambam says that there's a klal in Torah that Hashem wanted to give all of us as Yidden, and particularly the Kohanim, that they're a holy people. He wanted us to give special activities and special holy acts, that through those holy acts you become a holy person. And the Rambam goes with a klal here that the Sefer Chinuch is very famous for. And the Rambam is hinting here at a klal that you don't become holy by changing your mind and thinking differently than what you thought yesterday. That's not how you become holy. That helps you. That's not what makes you holy. What makes you holy is act. If you do a certain act, and you act in a way, and you put on tefillin, and you do other inyanim, you keep Shabbos, and you put on tzitzis, and you do all the holy thing, you keep away from forbidden food, and you eat kashrus, and all. Well, that has an effect on your body. I mean, your body becomes a kli, and automatically you start thinking differently. But you start thinking differently based on your activity. And therefore, what Hashem wanted was, Hashem wanted to give the Kohanim all sorts of, says the Rambam, all sorts of very special activities to do to make them holy and to make them worthy as his servants. And at the same time, the Jewish people will benefit benefit from it. And therefore, instead of him blessing directly, he gave it through the Kohanim to sanctify the Kohanim and add to their Kedusha as a holy people. Says the Sefer Chinuch very similar to that, and he says also that Hashem could have directly given. Why did he give it to the priestly people? He wanted to sanctify, and through that to indicate to us all that through holy acts, we become holy. But not just through thinking holy. By holy acts, we change our whole body, make it into a vessel, and therefore the brain automatically begins to think differently and act in a different way. And that's the Indian of Kedusha. Kedusha is a practical matter, not a conceptual matter. It's a very famous principle in the Sefer Chinuch. And the Rambam also hints at it here, and there's one on that the Sefer Chinuch and the Rambam are quite similar in different passages. So therefore, that's their principle. Well, that leads us to a further stage in the understanding of the priestly blessing, that it was really Hashem is blessing it. Hashem is the one who's blessing us, but it has to go through the priestly people in order to elevate their state as a servant of Hashem, and as the group or the Shevet, what their holiness is to serve, they will become more holy and more Raui to be Kohanim through blessing us. However, we see that the Eibishter has a desire, a very great desire, that people who've reached a Kedusha like the Kohanim should be mamshich and bring down a bracha onto the Jewish people. Well, that's indicatory of the basic love that Hashem has for the Jewish people, and therefore He's chosen Shevet inside the chosen people themselves, the Kohanim, to give over His blessing to the Jewish people for their benefit, and the Jewish people as a Klal will benefit from it. And so Hashem will be, as it were, He will be full of nachas ruach kaviyachol, that both His chosen servers and the whole Jewish people will benefit from such a tremendous blessing. And that's according to the Rambam and the Sefer Chinuch. But that's the basic idea of the priestly blessing. However, we need to understand the whole in a little bit more. Why did Hashem choose to bless the Jewish people in such a way? And why did it have to go through the Kohanim, particularly? And it comes through this Kedusha that the Eben Ezra and that point out, based on the Nazir, they come to it through the whole Inyan of the Seitan and the Nazir, and they reach this concept of the Kedushas, Kohanim, etc., etc. So we say every